You're walking across your wheat field in the early morning, checking on crops that are nearly ready for harvest. The dew is heavy on your boots, and mist still clings to the low places between the hills. You climb the small rise at the field's edge to get a better view of the acreage, and that's when you see it. 50 meters across, impossibly precise, a massive geometric pattern has been pressed into your wheat overnight. Perfect circles connected by straight lines, all laid down in swirled patterns that catch the morning light. Your field was empty yesterday. You locked the gate last night. Nobody called, nobody asked permission. And yet here it is, as if it materialized from nothing. Welcome back to Midnight Deep Dive. If you're new here, welcome to our cozy corner of the internet, where we explore fascinating stories designed to ease you gently into sleep. Wherever you are right now, I'm so glad you've decided to join me for this adventure. Tonight, we're exploring one of the modern world's most captivating mysteries: crop circles. These intricate patterns appearing overnight in fields across the globe have sparked theories ranging from alien communication to atmospheric phenomena to elaborate human artistry. For decades, they've captured imaginations, divided believers from skeptics, and turned quiet agricultural landscapes into stages for something extraordinary. How are they made? Who makes them? And perhaps most importantly, why do we want so badly for them to be something more than human? So settle in, find that comfortable spot, and let's journey together through wheat fields where patterns appear like magic. Our story begins in the English countryside, where simple circles would soon evolve into something nobody expected. Long before crop circles became an international phenomenon, before tourists flocked to English fields with cameras, and before researchers arrived with scientific equipment, there were whispers of strange patterns appearing in farmland. The story often begins with a peculiar woodcut from 1678 called The Mowing Devil, which shows a field of oats arranged in a circular pattern, supposedly cut by a supernatural entity after a farmer refused to pay a reasonable price for harvesting. The pamphlet that accompanied this image told of a farmer who, in a fit of anger, declared he'd rather the devil himself mow his field than pay what his laborer asked. According to the tale, that very night, the field appeared to catch fire with strange lights, and by morning the oats were laid out in neat circles, cut so perfectly that no human could have accomplished the task. Whether this 17th century account represents an actual unexplained phenomenon, a morality tale about greed and pride, or perhaps an early example of creative storytelling, it established a template that would echo through the centuries. Mysterious circular patterns appearing overnight in fields, attributed to forces beyond human capability. For nearly 300 years after the Mowing Devil, historical records remain remarkably quiet about crop circles. This silence is itself interesting. If the phenomenon was genuinely ancient and widespread, we might expect more consistent documentation through the centuries. Instead, the modern crop circle story really begins in the 1960s and 1970s, when farmers in southern England started discovering simple circular depressions in their wheat, barley, and oat fields. These early formations were notably different from what would come later. They were simple circles, sometimes appearing alone, sometimes in small clusters of 3 or 4. The wheat inside these circles was flattened in a swirled pattern, spiraling outward from the center like water going down a drain. There were no elaborate geometric shapes, no complex mathematical patterns, no intricate pictograms. Just circles. Simple, mysterious circles. The locations of these early circles followed a pattern too. They appeared predominantly in Wiltshire and Hampshire, counties in southern England that are home to ancient sites like Stonehenge and Avebury. This geographical clustering would later fuel theories about ley lines, earth energies, and the connection between ancient sacred sites and modern phenomena. But in those early years, the circles were primarily a local curiosity, puzzling farmers who discovered them and sparking conversations in village pubs about what might cause such strange patterns. One of the earliest somewhat documented modern crop circles appeared in Tully, Queensland, Australia, in 1966. A farmer named George Pedley reported seeing a strange object rise from a swampy area, and upon investigation, discovered a circular area of flattened reeds. This case became known as the Tully saucer nest, immediately linking crop formations with UFO phenomena in the public imagination. The connection between mysterious circular patterns and extraterrestrial visitors was forged early and would prove nearly impossible to separate. In England during the 1970s, these simple circles remained relatively uncommon, appearing perhaps a dozen times per year across the southern countryside. Farmers generally viewed them as oddities rather than problems. The flattened crops could still be harvested, and the circles created little economic damage. Some farmers found them amusing, others found them mildly annoying. Few imagined they were witnessing the beginning of a phenomenon that would explode into international fascination. What's particularly interesting about these early formations is their consistency. They appeared during the summer months, typically in fields of wheat or barley that were approaching harvest. The flattening always occurred at night, with no witnesses ever coming forward to describe the process of creation. The circles were discovered by farmers or workers entering fields in the morning, appearing as if they had materialized overnight like mushroom rings. The plants inside these early circles showed a curious characteristic that would become a focal point of later investigations. Rather than being broken or crushed, the wheat stalks were bent at their nodes, those slightly swollen joints where the plant naturally bends and changes direction. The stalks would be laid down in a spiral pattern, often in multiple layers with different directional flows. To the untrained eye, this appeared far too orderly to be the result of storm damage or animal activity. Local newspapers occasionally reported on these circles, treating them as amusing rural mysteries. Theories ranged from the meteorological to the biological. Perhaps they were caused by peculiar wind patterns, miniature tornadoes that touched down briefly and spun the crops flat. Maybe they resulted from fungal growths in the soil that weakened the plants in circular patterns. Some suggested rutting deer or hedgehogs engaged in circular mating dances. These early explanations attempted to find natural causes for what seemed like natural phenomena. Researchers like Dr. Terence Meaden, a physicist and meteorologist, became interested in these formations during the late 1970s. Meaden proposed that the circles were created by a specific type of atmospheric vortex, a spinning column of air that formed under particular weather conditions. His plasma vortex theory suggested that ionized air, made visible under certain conditions, could create the luminous phenomena sometimes reported near crop circles, while simultaneously laying down crops in circular patterns through its rotational force. Meaden's theory had the appeal of being testable and scientific. It didn't require aliens, supernatural forces, or human agency. It simply proposed that under the right atmospheric conditions, rare but natural weather phenomena could create these patterns. The theory explained why circles appeared most commonly in bowl-shaped valleys, where air could be funneled and concentrated. It explained why they appeared in summer when atmospheric conditions favored vortex formation. It even explained reports of strange lights, which could be ionized air made briefly visible. For several years, Meaden's plasma vortex theory represented the most credible scientific explanation for crop circles. It satisfied the need for rational explanation while acknowledging that the phenomenon was genuinely mysterious and not yet fully understood. The theory suggested that crop circles were real, natural, and potentially valuable for understanding atmospheric physics. This scientific legitimacy would prove important as the phenomenon entered its next, far more complex phase. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, those simple circles continued appearing in English fields, each one adding to the growing mystery. farmers grew more accustomed to finding them. Researchers like Meaden collected data and refined theories. And somewhere in southern England, two men named Doug and Dave were watching the growing fascination with great interest, beginning to form a plan that would transform crop circles from local curiosity into global phenomenon. The summer of 1981 marked a turning point in crop circle history. The simple circles that had characterized the phenomenon for years began evolving. Circles appeared with rings around them, like targets. Then came circles connected by straight lines, creating simple pictograms. The formations were becoming more complex, more deliberate in their design, more intentional. And with this increased complexity came an explosion of interest that transformed crop circles from rural oddity into international sensation. By the mid-1980s, the formations appearing in English fields had become genuinely impressive. Instead of simple circles, farmers were discovering elaborate geometric patterns. Celtic crosses, triangular arrays, sets of circles arranged in precise mathematical relationships. Some formations incorporated curves and straight lines in combinations that seemed to reference ancient symbols or astronomical diagrams. The artistry was undeniable, even as the mechanism remained mysterious. The media began paying serious attention. National newspapers sent photographers to document the formations. Television news crews arrived in Wiltshire to film the intricate patterns from helicopters, providing aerial views that revealed the true scale and precision of the designs. The images were stunning. Vast geometric patterns stretching across golden wheat fields, their lines crisp and deliberate, their proportions balanced and harmonious. To the public, these looked like nothing that could be created by weather phenomena or animal activity. This is when the term crop circle entered common usage, even though the formations were increasingly non-circular. The name stuck because those early simple circles had established the phenomenon's identity, and by the time the patterns became complex, the terminology was too embedded to change. People spoke of crop circle formations or pictograms, but the phenomenon remained synonymous with circles even when the reality had evolved far beyond that simple shape. The Westbury White Horse Formation of 1987 represents a key moment in this evolution. This elaborate design appeared below the Westbury White Horse, a chalk figure carved into a hillside in Wiltshire. The formation consisted of multiple circles arranged in a pattern that seemed almost architectural, with connecting lines and precise spacing. It was large, complex, and undeniably beautiful. Photographs of this formation circulated widely, capturing public imagination and intensifying the mystery. With increased media attention came increased tourism. Fields with crop circles became destinations. Farmers who had once viewed the circles as minor curiosities now found their land invaded by curious visitors trampling through crops to see the formations up close. Some farmers began charging entrance fees, recognizing that the mysterious patterns had commercial value. The crop circle phenomenon was becoming an industry. Researchers and enthusiasts formed organizations dedicated to studying and documenting crop circles. The Center for Crop Circle Studies was founded in 1990, bringing together people from various backgrounds: scientists, artists, spiritualists, UFO researchers, and curious laypeople. These groups conducted surveys, collected data, and attempted to establish patterns in when, where, and how crop circles appeared. They created detailed diagrams of formations, noting measurements and directional flows of laid crops. The complexity of formations accelerated through the late 1980s. Designs began incorporating fractal patterns, suggesting familiarity with cutting-edge mathematical concepts. Some formations referenced astronomical alignments, appearing to mark solstices or to point toward particular stars or planets. Others seemed to echo ancient symbols from cultures worldwide: Celtic knots, Mayan calendars, Hindu mandalas, geometric patterns from Islamic art. This is when crop circles became deeply embedded in New Age spirituality and UFO culture. The formations were interpreted as messages from extraterrestrial intelligences, communications from a higher consciousness, or manifestations of Earth energies responding to humanity's spiritual needs. Books appeared proposing elaborate theories about the circle's meanings and purposes. Conferences brought together believers to share research and speculate about the intelligence behind the formations. The Barbary Castle formation of 1991 exemplified this new level of complexity. This stunning design combined circles, triangles, and spirals in a mandala-like pattern that referenced both ancient symbolism and modern mathematical concepts. It appeared to incorporate representations of concepts from theoretical physics and sacred geometry. The formation was massive, mathematically precise, and contained elements that seemed to require both artistic vision and technical knowledge to create. What's fascinating about this period is how the phenomenon seemed to respond to attention. As more people became interested in crop circles, the formations became more impressive, as if whatever created them was aware of its audience and determined to impress. This pattern would later seem obvious evidence of human creation, but at the time, it reinforced beliefs that the circles represented communication from an intelligence that wanted to be noticed and understood. Researchers documented strange phenomena associated with crop circles. People reported electronic equipment malfunctioning near formations. Batteries would drain rapidly. Cameras would refuse to work properly. Some visitors claimed to experience unusual physical sensations inside circles, tingling, nausea, or feelings of euphoria. Dowsers reported detecting unusual energy patterns. These anecdotal experiences added layers of mystery to the phenomenon. The plants inside formations received intense scrutiny. Researchers noted that the wheat stalks were bent at their nodes rather than broken, which seemed significant. Some proposed that this indicated exposure to brief, intense heat that softened the nodes just enough to allow bending without breaking. Others suggested that the plants had been affected by some kind of energy field that altered their cellular structure. Samples were sent to laboratories for analysis, with results that were interpreted differently depending on the researchers' pre-existing beliefs. Reports of luminous phenomena near crop circles increased during this period. People claimed to see balls of light floating over fields, sometimes seeming to move with purpose and intelligence. Video footage captured what appeared to be glowing orbs hovering near formations. These lights were interpreted as UFOs, as manifestations of Earth energy, or as plasma phenomena connected to the formation process. The connection between lights and circles added another dimension to the mystery. By 1990, the crop circle phenomenon had become a cultural touchstone. The formations appeared in movies, books, and television shows. They represented humanity's hope for contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, our fascination with unsolved mysteries, and the romantic appeal of something genuinely unexplained existing in our increasingly explained world. Crop circles had transcended their agricultural origins to become symbols of mystery itself. The explosion in both complexity and number of formations during the late 1980s seemed to validate the phenomenon's authenticity. Skeptics asked how humans could create such elaborate designs in darkness in just a few hours without being detected. The scale, precision, and artistry of the formations seemed to require capabilities beyond what ordinary people possessed. The mystery deepened even as it became more public, drawing more attention, more researchers, and more believers into fields across southern England. On September 9, 1991, the British newspaper Today published a story that sent shockwaves through the crop circle community. Two men, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, both in their 60s, claimed responsibility for creating hundreds of crop circles over the previous 13 years. They weren't claiming to be part of some elaborate conspiracy or to represent some larger group. They were simply two friends who, starting in 1978, had been going out into fields at night with basic tools and creating the mysterious formations that had captivated the world. The confession was detailed and specific. Doug and Dave explained their methods. They used a wooden plank attached to a rope as their primary tool, pressing down crops in sweeping arcs by walking backward while holding the plank. They used a simple surveying tool made from a wire attached to a baseball cap to maintain straight lines in darkness. They planned their designs on paper beforehand, sometimes for weeks, refining ideas until they had patterns they wanted to create. Then, on suitable nights when moonlight was sufficient but not too bright, they would drive to a chosen field and spend hours bringing their designs to life. Their motivation was surprisingly simple. Doug claimed he got the idea in 1978 after reading about the Tully saucer nests in Australia. As a joke, he and Dave decided to create a circle in a Wiltshire field near the Westbury White Horse, a location they knew would attract attention. They enjoyed the media speculation about their first circle, got a thrill from the secret, and decided to continue. What started as a prank became an obsession, a creative outlet, and eventually a significant part of their lives. The two men demonstrated their techniques for reporters and researchers, creating a complex formation in daylight while being filmed. The demonstration was convincing. They worked efficiently, using simple tools to create clean geometric patterns. Within a few hours, they had produced a formation that looked remarkably similar to the mysterious circles that had been appearing in fields. The wheat was bent at nodes, not broken. The patterns were precise. The result was, by all visual measures, indistinguishable from formations that had been attributed to supernatural causes. Doug and Dave's confession should have solved the crop circle mystery definitively. Here were the creators, explaining their methods and demonstrating their techniques. They weren't claiming supernatural powers or alien assistance, just patience, practice, and a good sense of humor. They had created hundreds of formations over 13 years, evolving their designs from simple circles to increasingly complex patterns in response to the theories and expectations developing around crop circles. However, the crop circle community's response to this confession was fascinating and revealed much about belief, confirmation bias, and the human need for mystery. Rather than accepting Doug and Dave's claims at face value, many researchers rejected them outright. They argued that while Doug and Dave might have created some circles, they couldn't possibly have created all of them. The formations appeared in too many locations, were too complex, or appeared under conditions that would have made human creation impossible. Some researchers conducted detailed analyses attempting to prove that Doug and Dave's circles differed from genuine crop circles in measurable ways. They claimed that hoax circles had certain characteristics: messier edges, broken stalks, less precise geometry, that distinguished them from authentic formations. This became a circular argument. Any formation that looked messy was obviously hoaxed, while any formation that looked perfect couldn't possibly be human-made, therefore must be genuine. The most devoted believers simply dismissed Doug and Dave as either liars seeking attention, or, in more elaborate theories, as disinformation agents planted by governments to cover up the truth about extraterrestrial contact. In this interpretation, the confession itself was part of the conspiracy, an attempt to discredit a phenomenon that someone in power wanted suppressed. This response demonstrated how deeply invested many people had become in the mystery. Their entire worldview, their communities, and their sense of purpose were tied to crop circles being genuine, unexplained phenomena. Doug and Dave's confession did have significant effects, even among those who didn't fully accept it. Media coverage became more skeptical. The automatic assumption that crop circles were mysterious shifted toward recognition that at least many formations were human-made. Scientists who had been studying crop circles as potential natural phenomena largely moved on to other research. Recognizing that the human element made separating genuine, unusual phenomena from deliberate creations impossible. The confession also had an unexpected effect. It inspired other circle makers. Once the secret was out, once people realized that ordinary humans with simple tools could create these impressive patterns, groups of artists and pranksters began deliberately creating crop circles. This second wave of circle makers often had different motivations than Doug and Dave. Some viewed it as guerrilla art, creating beautiful temporary installations in agricultural canvases. Others enjoyed the intellectual challenge of designing increasingly complex patterns and executing them flawlessly in darkness. These new circle makers formed loose networks, sharing techniques and inspiration. The designs became more sophisticated as the community of creators grew and learned from each other. Formations began incorporating concepts from physics, mathematics, and computer graphics that would have been beyond Doug and Dave's original capabilities. The phenomenon had evolved from two friends with a prank into a subculture of landscape artists working anonymously to create increasingly impressive designs. Doug and Dave themselves seemed somewhat bemused by the response to their confession. They had expected more people to simply laugh at the revelation that these mysterious patterns had such mundane origins. Instead, they found themselves at the center of controversy, with believers attacking their credibility and skeptics pointing to them as proof that the entire phenomenon was fraudulent. The simple prank had grown far beyond anything they had imagined when they first pressed a wooden plank into wheat in 1978. The story of Doug and Dave reveals something profound about human psychology and our relationship with mystery. When we want to believe in something extraordinary, we're remarkably skilled at dismissing contradictory evidence. The simplest explanation, that talented artists created beautiful temporary installations in fields, was rejected in favor of more exotic possibilities because the exotic possibilities were more emotionally satisfying. Crop circles had become symbols of hope for contact with something greater than ourselves, and that symbolic value outweighed mere factual truth for many believers. What Doug and Dave had created wasn't really a hoax in the malicious sense. They hadn't swindled money or hurt anyone. They had created art anonymously and found entertainment in watching the elaborate theories that developed around their work. In some ways, their creation was a fascinating social experiment, demonstrating how humans construct meaning around ambiguous phenomena, how communities form around shared beliefs, and how difficult it can be to distinguish between what we want to be true and what actually is true. Understanding how crop circles are created reveals something remarkable. The formations aren't evidence of mysterious forces, but they are evidence of human creativity, determination, and artistic vision. The process of creating a convincing crop circle requires planning, skill, teamwork, and physical endurance. Far from diminishing the phenomenon, understanding the creation process reveals a different kind of wonder. The wonder of what humans can accomplish with simple tools, careful planning, and dedication to a vision. The basic technique that Doug and Dave pioneered remains the foundation of crop circle creation. The primary tool is surprisingly simple: a wooden plank, typically 4 to 6 feet long, attached to a rope at each end. The circle maker holds the ropes, places the plank on standing crops, and steps on it while walking backward. The plank presses the crops down in a smooth arc. By pivoting around a central point, using a rope as a compass, a circle maker can create a perfect circle of any desired radius. But creating a simple circle is just the beginning. Complex formations require careful planning and additional techniques. Most circle makers start with detailed diagrams drawn to scale on paper. They work out the geometry carefully, calculating distances and angles, ensuring that the design will work when translated from paper to field. Some modern circle makers use computer software to design formations, generating precise coordinates that can guide creation in the field. The surveying tools used by circle makers have evolved beyond Doug and Dave's simple cap-and-wire device, but they remain relatively basic. A measuring tape or rope marked at regular intervals allows precise distance measurement. A simple T-bar can be used as a sighting device to maintain straight lines in darkness. Some teams use laser pointers or directed LED lights to establish alignment over long distances. None of these tools are beyond the reach of ordinary people with basic construction or surveying knowledge. Creating formations in darkness is essential for maintaining the mystery and avoiding detection. Most circle makers work during moonlit nights, particularly around full moon when visibility is best, without requiring artificial lighting that might attract attention. They typically begin work between midnight and 2 a.m., when farmers and nearby residents are least likely to be awake and observant. The work is physical and time-consuming. A complex formation might require 6 to 8 hours of continuous work by a team of 3 to 6 people. The process begins with marking the center point of the design, often using a wooden stake that can be left in place or removed after completion. From this center, the team works outward, creating circles, arcs, and geometric elements according to their plan. Communication is essential and usually conducted in whispers or through prearranged signals. The team must coordinate their movements to ensure that paths don't cross unnecessarily and that the design emerges cohesively. One of the most impressive aspects of crop circle creation is how circle makers achieve the signature characteristic of bent but not broken stalks. This isn't mysterious or impossible. It's simply a matter of technique and timing. Crops are most pliable during summer when they're mature but still green. At this stage, the stalks contain enough moisture to bend without breaking. The wooden plank technique naturally bends stalks at their nodes, the joints where the plant is most flexible. By pressing steadily rather than crushing quickly, skilled circle makers can lay down crops that look undamaged except for the bend. The layered effect often observed in crop circles, where stalks lie in multiple directions at different depths, results from deliberate technique. As circle makers work, they approach the same area from different angles, creating overlapping patterns. This layering adds visual complexity to the formation and creates the mathematical precision that convinced many observers the circles couldn't be man-made. In reality, it just indicates careful planning and skilled execution. Entry and exit from fields requires careful consideration. Circle makers typically enter from tram lines, the tracks left by farming equipment that provide pathways through crops without creating obvious damage. They plan routes that minimize visible disturbance, sometimes even carefully re-erecting stalks they've stepped on while entering. This attention to detail is what made many formations appear to have no obvious access points, contributing to their mysterious appearance. Modern circle-making teams often scout locations in advance, visiting fields during the day to assess crop height, field boundaries, visibility from roads, and proximity to farmhouses. They note the location of tram lines, plan optimal entry and exit routes, and identify potential problems like irrigation equipment or electric fences. This reconnaissance is crucial for executing complex designs efficiently and avoiding complications. Weather plays a significant role in crop circle creation. Ideal conditions include dry crops, mild temperatures, light winds, and no rain in the forecast. Wet crops are harder to work with and show more damage. Strong winds make precision difficult and can partially re-erect laid crops before the team finishes. Rain after creation can help set the formation by further flattening crops, but rain during creation is miserable and complicates the work. The physical demands of crop circle creation are significant. Working for hours in darkness, walking backward, bending constantly, pulling ropes, and maintaining focus on complex geometric patterns while fatigued is genuinely difficult. Circle makers often describe the work as exhausting but meditative, entering a flow state where the design emerges through repetitive practiced movements. The physical challenge is part of the appeal for many. It's a test of endurance and dedication to the artistic vision. Safety considerations include avoiding being caught by farmers, some of whom react angrily to finding their crops damaged. Circle makers risk prosecution for criminal damage, though convictions are rare because proving who created a particular formation is difficult. Some circle makers maintain relationships with sympathetic farmers who allow creations in their fields, either for payment or for the publicity and tourism the formations bring. Modern circle making has evolved into distinct styles and signatures, though creators remain largely anonymous. Some teams favor organic, flowing designs that reference natural forms. Others prefer crisp geometric patterns with mathematical precision. A few specialized groups create formations that incorporate specific messages or cultural references, sometimes revealing their involvement only long after the formation has been documented and discussed. The tools of the trade have expanded beyond planks and ropes to include garden rollers for creating larger flattened areas quickly, stompers for creating sharp corners, and laser levels for ensuring precise alignment over long distances. Some teams use walkie-talkies for coordination, though this risks being overheard. GPS devices help with positioning, particularly for formations that reference specific geographic coordinates or astronomical alignments. What's remarkable is that none of these techniques require anything beyond human capabilities. No aliens, no plasma vortices, no mysterious Earth energies. Just planning, practice, teamwork, and determination. The mystery of how elaborate formations could be created overnight dissolves when you understand the methods and recognize the dedication of the creators. The genuine marvel is human ingenuity and the lengths people will go to for art, for the challenge, and for the pleasure of creating something beautiful that will provoke wonder in others. For many people, crop circles represent humanity's best evidence for ongoing contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. This belief system, while not supported by physical evidence, reveals something beautiful about human hope and our deep desire to know we're not alone in the universe. Understanding why people believe crop circles are alien communications helps us understand the emotional and psychological needs that drive much of our fascination with the unexplained. The connection between crop circles and UFOs was established early and reinforced consistently. The Tully saucer nest in 1966, with its circular pattern of flattened reeds and eyewitness report of a strange object, set the template for this interpretation. When circles began appearing regularly in Wiltshire during the 1970s and 80s, the fact that this region is also known for frequent UFO sightings seemed too coincidental to ignore. Believers proposed that extraterrestrials were using crop circles as either landing sites, communication attempts, or demonstration of their capabilities. The interpretation of crop circles as alien messages became more elaborate as the formations became more complex. Believers began analyzing patterns for hidden meanings, mathematical codes, and references to advanced physics. Some formations were interpreted as star maps showing the aliens' home system. Others were seen as warnings about environmental catastrophe or nuclear dangers. Still others seemed to reference sacred geometry or consciousness evolution, suggesting the aliens weren't just communicating, but teaching humanity important spiritual truths. The Chilbolton Formation of 2001 became a touchstone for believers in alien communication. This elaborate design appeared to respond to the Arecibo message, a radio transmission sent into space in 1974 containing information about Earth, humanity, and our DNA. The Chilbolton Formation seemed to present similar information, but modified to describe a different species, with different DNA structure, different appearance, and originating from a different solar system. To believers, this was clear evidence of a direct reply from extraterrestrial intelligence. Skeptics pointed out that the Chilbolton Formation contained errors and ambiguities that seemed more consistent with human misunderstanding of the original Arecibo message than with an actual alien response. The reply suggested that whoever created it had interpreted the Arecibo message incorrectly in several places, making mistakes that seemed distinctly human, rather than representing an advanced civilization's attempt at communication. But for believers, these apparent discrepancies were explained away or interpreted as intentional tests of humanity's interpretative abilities. The psychological appeal of the alien communication theory is understandable. For many people, the possibility that we're not alone in the universe is profoundly comforting. The idea that more advanced beings are watching over us, trying to communicate with us, and perhaps guiding our evolution provides meaning and purpose. It suggests that humanity is part of a larger cosmic community, and that our existence and development matter to beings beyond our planet. Crop circles as alien communication also provides a less threatening form of contact than the UFO abduction narratives that became popular in the same era. Instead of aliens kidnapping people for disturbing experiments, crop circle aliens are gentle, patient teachers leaving messages in fields. They're not invading or threatening. They're reaching out, trying to help, offering knowledge that could save or advance humanity, if only we could fully understand their messages. The complexity and beauty of many formations reinforced alien theories. Believers argued that the mathematical precision, the incorporation of advanced concepts from physics and astronomy, and the sheer scale of the designs exceeded human capabilities, particularly given that they were created in darkness within hours. The formations seemed to demonstrate knowledge and capabilities beyond our own, which naturally suggested non-human intelligence. Some researchers developed elaborate systems for decoding crop circle messages. They applied numerology, geometric analysis, and symbolic interpretation to extract meaning from formations. Every circle diameter, every angular relationship, every element of design was analyzed for significance. Conferences and books presented these interpretations, creating entire libraries of supposed alien wisdom gleaned from wheat fields. The fact that different researchers extracted different messages from the same formations was explained by the richness and multi-layered nature of the communications. The locations of crop circles added to alien theories. The concentration of formations near ancient sites like Stonehenge and Avebury suggested to believers that aliens recognized these locations as spiritually or energetically significant. Perhaps the extraterrestrials were honoring human sacred sites, or maybe they were accessing Earth energies that flowed more strongly at these locations. The geographic patterns became evidence that whoever created the circles understood something profound about Earth's energy matrix. Believers documented what they claimed were common experiences inside crop circles: feelings of peace and heightened awareness, physical sensations like tingling or warmth, spontaneous emotional releases, and sometimes claimed spiritual insights or communications with non-physical entities. These subjective experiences, while impossible to verify objectively, were real to those experiencing them and reinforced belief that the formations were more than mere physical patterns. They were energetic constructs designed to affect human consciousness. The ball of light phenomena reported near crop circles became central to alien theories. Video footage showing luminous orbs hovering over fields, sometimes appearing to move with apparent purpose, was presented as evidence of alien craft or energy beings creating formations. Some footage showed small lights moving in ways that seemed inconsistent with known flying animals or conventional aircraft. To believers, these lights were the creators of the circles, caught in the act. Skeptics offered alternative explanations for the lights. Aircraft at a distance, reflected light from vehicles, insects close to camera lenses appearing as orbs or camera artifacts. Some lights were probably hoaxes themselves, created with drones, LED-equipped models, or simple visual effects. But for believers, the mere existence of unexplained lights near crop circles confirmed the extraterrestrial hypothesis. The lights were aliens at work, marking their creation process with visible energy signatures. The emotional investment in the alien communication theory makes it resistant to disconfirming evidence. When Doug and Dave confessed, believers simply argued that some circles were hoaxed while others remained genuine. When researchers demonstrated how complex formations could be created by humans, believers claimed these demonstrations proved only that simple circles were human-made, while the truly extraordinary formations still defied explanation. Each piece of skeptical evidence was compartmentalized, preserving the core belief that some crop circles, the really impressive ones, remained unexplained and therefore likely alien. This psychological pattern, interpreting ambiguous evidence in ways that confirm existing beliefs while dismissing contradictory evidence, isn't unique to crop circle believers. It's a normal human tendency that affects us all in various domains. What makes it particularly visible in the crop circle phenomenon is how clearly the evidence actually points toward human creation, making the persistence of alternative beliefs a fascinating case study in how we maintain cherished ideas despite contradictory information. The belief in alien communication through crop circles serves important psychological functions for many people. It provides community through shared belief, purpose through studying and decoding messages, and hope that humanity's problems might be solved with guidance from more advanced beings. It offers an alternative to purely materialistic worldviews, suggesting that reality is more mysterious and meaningful than mainstream science acknowledges. These psychological benefits help explain why the belief persists despite the preponderance of evidence for human creation. While most crop circles are now recognized as human creations, the early scientific attempts to explain them through natural phenomena represent fascinating examples of how scientists approach unexplained observations. These theories, though ultimately unable to account for the complexity of later formations, demonstrate rigorous thinking about how atmospheric and geological processes might create unusual patterns in agricultural fields. Understanding these natural theories provides insight into both the phenomenon itself and the scientific method's strengths and limitations when confronting unusual data. Dr. Terence Meaden's plasma vortex theory represented the most sophisticated scientific attempt to explain crop circles through natural atmospheric processes. Meaden, a physicist and meteorologist with impressive credentials, proposed that crop circles resulted from a rare but entirely natural phenomenon: rotating columns of ionized air that formed under specific atmospheric conditions and descended briefly to ground level, creating the circular patterns through their rotational force. The theory had several appealing elements. It explained why crop circles appeared predominantly in bowl-shaped valleys in southern England. These geographic features could funnel and concentrate air masses, creating conditions favorable for vortex formation. It explained why formations appeared during summer months when atmospheric conditions were right. It accounted for reports of strange lights near crop circles. Ionized plasma would glow, particularly visible at night, and it explained the spiral pattern of laid crops. A rotating vortex would naturally create swirled patterns. Meaden's theory also attempted to explain why the wheat wasn't simply crushed, but bent at nodes. He proposed that the plasma vortex generated brief, intense electromagnetic fields and possibly localized heating that softened the nodes just enough to allow bending without breaking. This mechanism seemed plausible based on known physics, even if it required atmospheric conditions that were rare and poorly understood. However, the plasma vortex theory faced significant challenges as crop circles evolved. While rotating atmospheric phenomena could conceivably create simple circles, They couldn't explain formations with multiple elements, straight lines, perfect geometric relationships, or pictographic elements. Meaden himself acknowledged these limitations, distinguishing between what he considered genuine natural formations, simple circles, and obvious hoaxes, complex patterns. But this distinction was problematic because the simpler and complex formations appeared in the same locations, in the same time periods, with no clear boundary between natural and artificial types. Other natural theories focused on geological and biological causes. Some researchers proposed that underground water flows or geological formations created electromagnetic patterns that affected crop growth, causing plants to weaken and collapse in circular patterns. This theory attempted to explain not just the formations, but also the reported electromagnetic anomalies that dowsers and researchers detected in and around crop circles. Fungal explanations suggested that circular fungal growth patterns in soil, known to create fairy rings of mushrooms, might weaken crop root systems in circular patterns, causing plants to fall over in distinctive formations. This theory had the advantage of explaining why some areas seemed to produce circles repeatedly over multiple years, as fungal colonies could persist in soil between growing seasons. However, soil testing in crop circles rarely revealed fungal patterns that would explain the formations, and the theory couldn't account for complex geometric designs. The insect theory proposed that certain insects, particularly the wheat stem fly, damaged plants in patterns that only became visible when crops matured and damaged stems collapsed under the weight of grain heads. Proponents noted that some crop circles appeared gradually over days rather than overnight, which would be consistent with insect damage manifesting progressively. However, this theory struggled to explain the precision and complexity of formations, and agricultural experts noted that insect damage patterns looked distinctly different from crop circle formations. Animal-based theories suggested that deer, hedgehogs, or other wildlife created circles through repetitive behavior patterns like mating displays or dust bathing. While animals do create some circular disturbances in fields, the patterns they create are irregular and messy compared to crop circles. Wildlife cameras placed in fields with histories of crop circle appearances never captured animals creating formations, making this explanation increasingly untenable. Seismic activity in underground streams were proposed as mechanisms that might affect crop growth patterns through subtle ground vibrations or water table variations. Some researchers mapped crop circle locations against geological features, claiming to find correlations with fault lines or underground water flows. These correlations were generally weak and appeared to reflect confirmation bias more than genuine patterns, as crop circles appeared in many locations without the predicted geological features. The meteorite theory suggested that small meteorites or micrometeor showers might impact fields at oblique angles, creating circular impact patterns. This theory had the advantage of potentially explaining isolated single circles, but couldn't account for multiple connected formations. The lack of actual impact damage or meteorite fragments, or the overwhelming concentration of circles in specific geographic areas rather than random global distribution. Electromagnetic phenomena generated by quartz-bearing rocks underground were proposed as mechanisms that might affect plant growth or create atmospheric conditions conducive to other natural formation processes. The fact that many crop circles appeared in areas with significant bedrock quartz deposits seemed significant to proponents. However, similar geological conditions exist worldwide without producing crop circles, suggesting that if quartz played a role, it was at most a minor contributing factor. What's notable about all these natural theories is how they struggled with the increasing complexity of crop circles. Each theory could potentially explain simple circles under certain conditions, but none could account for the geometric precision, symbolic content, and rapid evolution of designs that characterized the phenomenon through the 1980s and 90s. The formations were evolving faster than natural processes could explain, incorporating concepts and designs that seemed to require intention and planning. The scientific community's response to crop circles evolved over time. Initial curiosity gave way to skepticism as the human element became apparent. Most mainstream scientists concluded that, while unusual natural atmospheric or geological phenomena might occasionally create simple circular patterns in vegetation, the vast majority of documented crop circles, particularly the complex formations that attracted the most attention, were human-made. The natural theories remained scientifically interesting as speculations about rare atmospheric phenomena, but they couldn't serve as comprehensive explanations for the crop circle phenomenon as it actually manifested. The natural formation theories remain valuable not because they successfully explained crop circles, but because they demonstrate how science approaches unexplained phenomena. Scientists proposed mechanisms based on known physics, designed tests to evaluate these mechanisms, and revised or abandoned theories as new evidence emerged. This process, while ultimately determining that most crop circles were human-made, exemplified good scientific practice, taking observations seriously, proposing testable explanations, and following evidence to conclusions, even when those conclusions are less exciting than the alternatives. The scientific investigation of crop circles represents a fascinating case study in how researchers approach anomalous phenomena, what constitutes good evidence, and how easily bias can influence interpretation of ambiguous data. Various teams of scientists, from physicists to biologists, have examined crop circles using tools ranging from microscopes to magnetometers, producing results that have been interpreted wildly differently depending on the researcher's pre-existing beliefs. Understanding this scientific work reveals both the genuine mysteries in the data and the limitations of trying to study phenomena that might be deliberately designed to appear mysterious. One of the most cited pieces of scientific evidence for unusual phenomena in crop circles comes from plant studies. Biophysicist Dr. William Levingood published several papers examining plant samples from crop circles, reporting anomalies in cell structure that he argued were inconsistent with simple mechanical flattening. His research identified what he called expulsion cavities, small holes in the nodes of plants where moisture had apparently vaporized, creating blowout cavities in the cell structure. Levingood proposed that these cavities indicated exposure to brief, intense microwave radiation that rapidly heated moisture in the plant tissue. Levingood's findings were seized upon by crop circle believers as proof that formations were created by unusual energy, whether from plasma vortices, earth energies, or alien technology. The logic went: mechanical flattening by humans wouldn't create these cellular changes, therefore circles showing these changes must be genuine rather than hoaxed. However, other scientists who examined Levingood's methodology raised concerns. The comparison control samples were often taken from different parts of the field or at different times, potentially introducing variables that could explain the differences. The cellular changes he identified could potentially result from several causes, including natural processes unrelated to circle formation. Subsequent research attempted to replicate Levingood's findings with more rigorous methodology. Results were mixed and often contradictory. Some studies found cellular anomalies in both crop circles and in randomly selected areas of the same fields, suggesting that the changes reflected normal variation or environmental factors rather than circle-specific phenomena. Other studies found no significant differences between plants from inside circles and control samples. The inconsistent results suggested that either the phenomena were real but extremely variable, or the measurement techniques were detecting differences that weren't actually related to the circle formation process. Soil studies in crop circles have produced similarly ambiguous results. Some researchers reported finding small magnetic particles scattered in soil within formations, suggesting that meteoritic material or unusual electromagnetic processes had occurred. However, magnetic particles are not unusual in agricultural soil. They can come from various sources, including airborne dust, industrial pollution, and natural geological processes. Demonstrating that magnetic particles in crop circles were unusual required carefully controlled comparisons with soil from adjacent areas. And when such controls were properly implemented, the differences generally disappeared. Electromagnetic readings in crop circles became another area of intense investigation. Researchers using magnetometers, EMF detectors, and other instruments reported unusual readings inside formations. Compasses supposedly behaved erratically, electronic equipment malfunctioned, and detectors registered electromagnetic anomalies. However, these measurements were often taken days or weeks after circle formation, making it impossible to determine whether any detected anomalies were related to the formation process or to subsequent factors like increased foot traffic, soil compaction, or electromagnetic sources brought by other researchers and visitors. The frequency claims about crop circles represent perhaps the most questionable category of supposed evidence. Some researchers claim to detect unusual frequencies or vibrations inside formations using pendulums, dowsing rods, or various electronic devices. These measurements were rarely quantified precisely or subjected to blind testing. Dowsing in particular has repeatedly failed to perform better than chance under controlled conditions, making such evidence scientifically questionable. Yet for many believers, personal experiences of feeling energy in crop circles remained powerfully convincing regardless of scientific validation. Photographic analysis of crop circles produced some interesting observations. Detailed aerial photographs revealed the precision and complexity of formations in ways that ground-level observation couldn't match. Researchers noted consistent features in how crops were laid down: the spiral patterns, the layering, the way plants bent at nodes. However, these observations, while scientifically interesting, didn't distinguish between natural and human-made formations. Skilled human circle makers could create all the features that aerial photography revealed. So the photographs, while beautiful, didn't constitute evidence for non-human creation. Statistical analysis of crop circle patterns attempted to find significance in when and where formations appeared. Some researchers claimed to find correlations with astronomical events, claiming that circles appeared more frequently during specific planetary alignments or lunar phases. However, these correlations were generally weak and disappeared when properly controlled for multiple comparison problems. When you look for enough potential correlations, some will appear significant by chance alone. The fact that many different researchers proposed many different astronomical correlations, most contradicting each other, suggested that the patterns reflected researcher bias rather than genuine phenomena. The most rigorous scientific conclusion about crop circles comes from understanding what actually distinguishes human-made formations from hypothetical non-human ones. If crop circles were created by advanced technology, natural atmospheric phenomena, or alien intelligence, we might expect to find physical evidence that couldn't be produced by humans with simple tools, consistency in formation characteristics that human-made circles couldn't replicate, or patterns in timing and location that reflected something other than human behavior. In reality, research has found the opposite. The physical characteristics of crop circles are entirely consistent with human creation using documented techniques. As human circle-making skills improved over time, the formations became more complex and precise, exactly as we'd expect if humans were creating them. The geographic concentration in southern England makes sense if we understand crop circles as a human cultural phenomenon that spread by social transmission. The evolution of designs over time parallels developments in mathematics, art, and computer graphics in the broader culture, suggesting human creators were incorporating contemporary ideas. Perhaps the most telling scientific evidence comes from the fact that no crop circle has ever been observed forming through natural or non-human processes. Despite decades of investigation, numerous all-night vigils, and extensive monitoring of fields, no researcher has documented a crop circle appearing through anything other than human activity. The circles that have been observed forming were all created by people. This absence of evidence for any other formation mechanism is itself powerful evidence that humans are responsible. The scientific investigation of crop circles ultimately reveals more about human psychology and the challenges of studying controversial phenomena than about mysterious natural processes or alien communication. Good science requires controlled experiments, blind testing, peer review, and willingness to abandon hypotheses when evidence doesn't support them. Much of the crop circle research failed these standards, producing results that confirmed researchers' pre-existing beliefs rather than testing those beliefs rigorously. However, the scientific exploration of crop circles was an entirely wasted effort. Research into how plants respond to mechanical stress, how electromagnetic fields affect biological systems, and how people perceive and interpret ambiguous phenomena all produced genuine knowledge, even if that knowledge didn't support the existence of mysterious crop circle formation mechanisms. The investigation demonstrated both the power of the scientific method and its limitations when applied to phenomena that are deliberately designed to appear mysterious, or when researchers approach data with strong pre-existing beliefs about what they'll find. The concentration of crop circles around ancient sites like Stonehenge, Avebury, and Silbury Hill has fed theories about earth energies, ley lines, and connections between modern phenomena and ancient sacred knowledge. While these theories aren't supported by evidence, they reveal fascinating ideas about how humans perceive landscape, create meaning, and connect past to present. Understanding the supposed relationship between crop circles and ancient sites helps us appreciate both the genuine wonder of these prehistoric monuments and the human tendency to weave them into contemporary mysteries. Stonehenge, built roughly 5,000 years ago, remains one of the world's most recognizable ancient monuments. These massive standing stones, arranged in circular patterns and aligned with solar and lunar events, represent an extraordinary feat of prehistoric engineering and demonstrate sophisticated astronomical knowledge. The monument sits in the heart of Wiltshire, the same county where the majority of crop circles appear, creating a geographic coincidence that many believers found too significant to be accidental. Theories connecting crop circles to ancient sites propose that prehistoric peoples understood earth energies that modern civilization has forgotten. According to these ideas, stone circles and other megalithic structures were built at locations where natural energy flows converge, or where the veil between worlds is thin. Crop circles supposedly appear at these same energetically significant locations, either created by the earth energies themselves or by non-human intelligences drawn to these power spots. The concept of ley lines became central to these theories. Ley lines are supposed alignments of ancient sites, lines drawn on maps connecting stone circles, burial mounds, ancient churches, and other archaeological features. Proponents claim these lines mark energy pathways or ancient roads used by prehistoric peoples. The theory, first proposed by Alfred Watkins in the 1920s, suggests that ancient people systematically marked landscape with monuments along these special alignments. Archaeologists and historians have thoroughly debunked ley line theories. When enough points are placed on a map, some will align by chance. The apparent patterns don't require any special explanation beyond probability. The sites connected by ley lines were built by different cultures, separated by thousands of years. making the idea of a coordinated alignment system implausible. The theory persists because humans are pattern-seeking creatures who excel at finding apparent order in random arrangements, particularly when looking for confirmation of pre-existing beliefs. Nevertheless, the ley line concept has become deeply embedded in crop circle mythology. Researchers map formations against supposed ley lines, claim that circles appear more frequently along these alignments, and interpret the patterns as evidence that both ancient peoples and modern circle creators recognize the same sacred geography. The fact that people draw different ley line maps with different alignments, and that crop circles appear in locations both on and off proposed ley lines, hasn't dampened enthusiasm for the theory among believers. The sacred geometry aspect of crop circle theories proposes that many formations incorporate mathematical ratios and geometric principles that ancient peoples understood and encoded in their monuments. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, perfect geometric ratios like 3, 4, 5 triangles, and other mathematical concepts supposedly appear in both crop circles and ancient structures. This shared geometry is interpreted as evidence that both reflect universal principles of cosmic order, rather than merely human invention. There's genuine mathematical beauty in both ancient monuments and crop circles. Stonehenge does incorporate astronomical alignments and geometric relationships. Many crop circles do feature precise geometric patterns and mathematical principles. However, humans across all eras have been fascinated by geometry and astronomy, so finding these interests reflected in both ancient monuments and modern creations requires no mystical explanation. Humans create things with mathematical precision because we find such precision aesthetically pleasing and intellectually satisfying. The location of crop circles near ancient sites can be explained more prosaically. Wiltshire is rural, heavily agricultural, and dotted with ancient monuments. Circle makers, who are generally people interested in mysteries and ancient history, naturally gravitate toward these symbolically significant locations. Creating a formation near Stonehenge adds layers of meaning and ensures media attention. The ancient sites provide context that makes the modern circles seem more significant, more connected to deep history and mystery. Some of the most impressive crop circles deliberately reference sacred geometry and ancient symbolism. Formations have incorporated mandalas, Celtic knots, Mayan calendars, and other designs with historical and cultural significance. This reflects the interests and knowledge of the human creators, rather than any genuine connection to ancient wisdom. Modern circle makers have access to books, websites, and documentaries about sacred geometry and ancient sites. They're creating installations that reference this knowledge, rather than channeling it from mysterious sources. The Avebury Stone Circle Complex, larger and older than Stonehenge, has had numerous crop circles appear in nearby fields. The monument consists of a massive circular earthwork containing the world's largest stone circle, with smaller circles and stone avenues extending outward. The sheer scale and antiquity of Avebury make it powerfully atmospheric, and crop circle believers interpret formations near the site as evidence that modern phenomena and ancient structures are connected through earth energies or alien interest in prehistoric monuments. Silbury Hill, the largest prehistoric human-made mound in Europe, stands nearby and has also been associated with crop circle activity. This massive chalk pyramid, built around 4,400 years ago for purposes that remain mysterious, captures imaginations and invites speculation. Crop circles appearing near Silbury are interpreted as responses to the ancient monument's energy or as messages that reference its forgotten purpose. The simpler explanation that circle makers choose these locations specifically because of their historical significance and the added meaning such locations provide requires no mystical mechanisms. The theory that ancient peoples possessed advanced knowledge that has been lost to modern civilization is romantic and appeals to our sense that perhaps the past was wiser than we assume. However, archaeological evidence doesn't support the idea that prehistoric peoples understood physics, mathematics, or astronomy significantly beyond what we'd expect from careful observation and practical necessity. The monuments they built are impressive, but they don't require advanced technology or mystical knowledge. Just time, effort, organization, and the observational skills that humans naturally develop. What connects ancient monuments to crop circles isn't earth energy or lost wisdom, but human meaning-making. We build monuments to mark significant locations and events, to express our understanding of cosmos and our place in it, and to create beauty that outlasts individual lifetimes. Crop circles, whether we acknowledge their human creators or attribute them to other sources, serve similar purposes. They're temporary monuments that make the landscape meaningful, that express ideas about order and mystery, and that connect us to questions about existence and intelligence that humans have always asked. The real magic in both ancient stone circles and modern crop circles isn't supernatural. It's the very human drive to transform landscape into meaning, to create beauty that provokes wonder, and to express ideas that transcend daily survival. Understanding that both phenomena result from human creativity and effort doesn't diminish them. It reveals the remarkable consistency of human nature across millennia, our eternal fascination with cosmos, geometry, and mystery, and our need to mark our existence with creations that speak to something larger than ourselves. While Wiltshire, England, remains the epicenter of crop circle activity, the phenomenon has spread worldwide, appearing in fields across Europe, North America, Asia, and Australia. This global distribution reveals how crop circles evolved from local curiosity to international cultural phenomenon, shaped by media coverage, cultural transmission, and the human fascination with mystery. Examining crop circles beyond England shows how the phenomenon adapted to different cultural contexts, while maintaining its essential appeal. The Netherlands developed its own robust crop circle tradition, with hundreds of formations appearing since the early 1990s. Dutch circles often demonstrate high artistic quality and mathematical complexity, reflecting the country's agricultural landscape and its population's familiarity with both art and engineering. Some Dutch researchers and enthusiasts have been remarkably open about crop circle creation being an art form, treating the phenomenon less as unexplained mystery and more as collaborative landscape installation art. German crop circles share characteristics with those in England and the Netherlands, but sometimes incorporate specifically German cultural references or appear near German historical sites. The phenomenon in Germany has been studied by both believers and skeptics, with German television programs producing documentaries that explore both the mystery and the human creation aspects. German researchers have been particularly interested in the psychological and sociological dimensions of crop circle belief. In North America, crop circles have appeared across Canada and the United States, from the wheat fields of Kansas to the prairies of Saskatchewan to the farmlands of Oregon. American circles often attract less media attention than their English counterparts, partly because the vast agricultural landscape makes them less concentrated and easier to miss. However, some American formations have been quite elaborate, demonstrating that the skills and motivations behind crop circle creation exist globally. The cultural interpretation of crop circles varies by region. In North America, circles are often immediately contextualized within UFO culture, possibly because American UFO folklore is particularly strong, and because crop circles appeared in America after the extraterrestrial interpretation had already been established. Japanese crop circles, while rare, are sometimes interpreted through Buddhist or Shinto spiritual frameworks, showing how the same physical phenomenon can be given different meanings based on local belief systems. Australian crop circles, including the early Tully saucer nests, have appeared sporadically, but generated significant local interest when they do occur. The vast agricultural regions of Australia provide ample opportunity for circle creation, but the lower population density means fewer people are looking for them. Australian formations have ranged from simple circles to complex geometric patterns, and Australian researchers have contributed to both the believer and skeptical camps of crop circle investigation. Italy has seen numerous crop circles, some appearing near ancient Roman sites or Renaissance landmarks. Italian circles sometimes incorporate designs that reference Italian artistic traditions or classical geometry, suggesting that creators are working within their cultural context. Italian media coverage has alternated between treating the phenomenon as mysterious and exposing it as artistic hoax, reflecting broader debates about authenticity and meaning in crop circles. Eastern European countries, including Poland, Czech Republic, and Romania, have had crop circles appear, often receiving media coverage that mixes fascination with skepticism. In post-communist Eastern Europe, crop circles sometimes became entangled with broader cultural questions about Western influence, New Age spirituality, and the place of traditional beliefs in modern society. The phenomenon's association with both technology, aliens, mysterious energy, and spirituality, earth energies, consciousness evolution, made it a perfect symbol for cultural negotiation between tradition and modernity. Asian crop circles remain relatively rare, though formations have been documented in Japan, India, and Indonesia. The relative scarcity might reflect agricultural practices that make circle creation more difficult, lower awareness of the phenomenon, reducing copycat effects, or cultural differences in what kinds of pranks or art installations appeal to local populations. When Asian circles do appear, they often generate intense media interest precisely because they're unusual in those contexts. South American crop circles have been reported in Argentina, Brazil, and other countries, sometimes associated with the region's significant UFO culture. Latin American UFO beliefs differ somewhat from North American or European versions, often incorporating elements of Catholic mysticism or indigenous spiritual traditions. Crop circles in South America are sometimes interpreted within these syncretic belief systems, showing again how the same phenomenon can take on different meanings in different cultural contexts. The global spread of crop circles demonstrates clear patterns of cultural transmission. The phenomenon appeared first in England, gained media attention, then appeared in other countries in waves that clearly followed media coverage and international awareness. This pattern is exactly what we'd expect if crop circles are primarily human-made. People learn about the phenomenon through media, become inspired to create their own, and adapt the basic concept to their local context. Internet culture has accelerated crop circle globalization. Websites, forums, and social media allow circle makers worldwide to share designs, techniques, and photographs. What began as isolated local phenomena became an international community of practice, with creators learning from each other across continents. This global network of mostly anonymous artists represents a fascinating example of how cultural practices spread and evolve in the digital age. The varying quality of crop circles worldwide reflects the distribution of skills and motivations. England's circles remain generally the most sophisticated, probably because it has the longest tradition of circle making and the most experienced practitioners. Circles in regions new to the phenomenon often show the characteristic features of early efforts: simpler designs, less precise execution, occasionally messy edges. Over time, as local practitioners gain experience, the quality improves, exactly as we'd expect with any skilled practice. Some countries have proven more receptive to crop circle beliefs, while others remain more skeptical. Cultural factors that influence receptivity include existing beliefs about UFOs and paranormal phenomena trust in versus skepticism about scientific authority, the role of mysticism and spirituality in public culture, and media practices around reporting unusual events. Countries with strong rationalist traditions and skeptical media often see crop circles quickly exposed as human creations, while countries with more tolerance for unexplained phenomena may maintain mystery around the circles longer. The global nature of crop circles raises interesting questions about the phenomenon's future. As awareness grows that most circles are human-made art installations, will the practice continue? Will it evolve into an openly acknowledged art form, or will it maintain its ambiguous status between mystery and known hoax? Different countries may answer these questions differently, with some embracing crop circles as legitimate landscape art, while others continue treating them primarily as mysteries or nuisances. What's clear from the global distribution is that crop circles respond to something fundamental in human nature: the desire to create, to provoke wonder, to participate in mystery, and to leave temporary marks on landscape that make the ordinary extraordinary. Whether in Wiltshire or Kansas, in Germany or Japan, the urge to transform agricultural fields into canvases for geometric art speaks to universal human impulses that transcend cultural boundaries. As we near the end of our journey through the wheat fields and the theories, the questions that remain are perhaps more interesting than the ones we've answered. We know that most crop circles are human-made. We understand the techniques used to create them. We can document the evolution from simple circles to complex geometric masterpieces. But understanding how crop circles are made doesn't fully explain why they're made, or why so many people want to believe in alternatives to the human explanation. The deeper story of crop circles is a story about human nature, about creativity, deception, belief, and our eternal hunger for mystery. The motivations behind crop circle creation are diverse and complex. For Doug and Dave, it started as a simple prank, a joke that got out of hand and became a consuming hobby. For them, the thrill came from secrecy, from watching researchers develop elaborate theories about their simple wooden plank technique, from the private knowledge that they were responsible for a phenomenon that captured international attention. Their motivation mixed mischief with pride in craftsmanship and pleasure in fooling experts. Other circle makers have different motivations. For many, crop circle creation is genuinely artistic practice. The medium is unusual, agricultural fields rather than canvas or stone, but the creative process mirrors that of any visual art. Circle makers design patterns that express aesthetic ideas, challenge their technical abilities, and create beauty that others will experience. The temporary nature of the art, lasting only until harvest, adds poignancy. These are ephemeral installations, closer to Buddhist sand mandalas than to permanent sculptures. Some circle makers are motivated by the intellectual challenge, creating a complex geometric design in darkness, maintaining precision with simple tools, coordinating team efforts without verbal communication. These challenges appeal to people who enjoy problem-solving and physical skill development. The puzzle of translating a design from paper to field, overcoming practical obstacles, and achieving crisp execution despite difficult conditions provides satisfaction similar to that experienced by rock climbers, puzzle solvers, or game designers. The anonymous nature of crop circle creation adds another dimension to its appeal. Unlike conventional artists who seek recognition and credit for their work, circle makers traditionally remain anonymous. This anonymity liberates the creative process from ego while adding to the phenomenon's mystery. The work speaks for itself without authorial attribution, and the creator's satisfaction comes from the work's impact rather than personal recognition. This represents a kind of pure artistic expression, creating beauty for its own sake rather than for fame or profit. However, anonymity also enables deception. When circle makers don't identify themselves, they allow alternative interpretations to flourish. Some creators are comfortable with this ambiguity, viewing it as part of the art. The interpretation by viewers becomes part of the creative process. Others feel more conflicted, particularly when they see people investing significant emotional energy or money in beliefs about the circle's origin. The ethics of allowing deception, even through mere silence, raises questions that individual circle makers must answer for themselves. The persistence of crop circle beliefs, despite overwhelming evidence for human creation, reveals fascinating aspects of human psychology. We've already discussed confirmation bias, pattern seeking, and the psychological comfort of mystery. But there's something deeper at work, a resistance to accepting that human creativity could be the source of something so impressive. This resistance reflects our tendency to underestimate human capabilities, while simultaneously overestimating the skills required for impressive feats. The phenomenon of crop circles demonstrates how easily communities can form around shared beliefs that diverge from mainstream understanding. Crop circle believers have created social networks, conferences, publications, and entire subcultures based on their interpretations of the phenomenon. These communities provide social belonging, shared purpose, and collective identity. Accepting that the circles are human-made would mean abandoning these communities, which creates strong motivation to maintain belief despite contradictory evidence. The role of wonder in human life helps explain both crop circle creation and belief. Humans need mystery, beauty, and experiences that transcend ordinary routine. Crop circles provide these experiences, whether they're interpreted as alien messages, earth energies, or human art. The aesthetic power of a complex geometric formation stretching across a golden wheat field is genuine regardless of its origin. The sense of wonder people experience when first seeing a crop circle is valid, whether the circle formed through mysterious processes or human effort. Perhaps the most important insight is that human creativity and ingenuity are themselves sources of legitimate wonder. The fact that ordinary people with simple tools can create geometric patterns of such precision and beauty is itself remarkable. The dedication required to spend cold nights working silently in darkness for hours, creating something beautiful that will last only weeks and for which you'll never receive public credit, speaks to something admirable in human nature, the drive to create beauty for its own sake. The crop circle phenomenon also reveals how meaning is constructed socially and culturally. The same physical object, flattened wheat in a geometric pattern, can be interpreted as artwork, hoax, alien communication, earth energy manifestation, or atmospheric phenomenon depending on the interpreter's framework and community. There's no essential, objective, true meaning inherent in the circles themselves. Meaning emerges from the interaction between object and observer, shaped by beliefs, expectations, and social context. This multiplicity of meaning isn't a failure or confusion. It's how human culture works. We create narratives around phenomena, share these narratives within communities, and construct shared realities that guide our understanding and behavior. Crop circles became a kind of Rorschach test, revealing what different people and communities needed and wanted to believe about intelligence, consciousness, and humanity's place in the universe. The future of crop circles remains uncertain. As awareness of human creation becomes more widespread, the phenomenon might decline as its mystery dissipates. Alternatively, it might evolve into openly acknowledged landscape art, with creators seeking recognition and developing the practice into a legitimate artistic medium. Or it might continue in its current ambiguous state, with some circles openly acknowledged as art, while others maintain mystery through creator anonymity. What seems certain is that humans will continue seeking mystery, creating beauty, and telling stories that make sense of ambiguous experiences. Crop circles, whether they persist or fade, have already demonstrated enduring truths about human nature. Our creativity is boundless, our capacity for belief is powerful, our need for wonder is deep. and our ability to create meaning is fundamental to being human. The wheat fields of Wiltshire will be harvested again next fall, and the circles that appeared this summer will vanish, turned into bread and beer. But the questions they raised, about art and deception, belief and skepticism, human capability and cosmic mystery, these questions remain as eternal as the wheat that grows again each spring. Tonight, we've walked together through morning-misted fields where impossible patterns lie in golden wheat. We've traced the evolution of crop circles from simple circles to geometric masterpieces, met the human artists who create them and the believers who find deeper meanings in their patterns. We've explored the science, the speculation, and the psychology behind a phenomenon that reveals as much about human nature as it does about our agricultural landscapes. The story of crop circles teaches us that wonder doesn't require supernatural explanations to be genuine, that human artistry can provoke the same awe as cosmic mysteries, and that sometimes the most interesting truth isn't about what created a phenomenon, but about why we interpret it the way we do. The flattened wheat will grow again, the patterns will fade into memory and photographs, but the human hunger for mystery, beauty, and meaning will persist, finding new forms in every generation. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the mysterious patterns of crop circles. If you're already drifting off, then our mission is complete. But if you're still awake, perhaps another deep dive through one of our previous episodes will carry you gently into slumber. Until we meet again in these quiet hours, may you find wonder in both mystery and revelation, beauty in both ancient stones and morning wheat, and peace in knowing that human creativity is itself a kind of magic worthy of celebration.